Welcome to the Change Life Destiny podcast, where healthcare is being reimagined one conversation at a time. We spotlight the people, innovations, and ideas moving us from sick care to self-care and from reactivity to true prevention. A place to connect, learn, and build a new future together. Get inspired at changelifedestiny.com. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everybody, to the Change Life Destiny podcast series. I am your host, Stephanie, and today we are with two of my favorite ladies, Michelle and Valerie from Frontier Pharmaceuticals and Snoot. Welcome to the show, ladies. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us. We're thrilled to be here.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, we have a lot to talk about because what you have developed, your story, your results, everything that you have to talk about today, there's just so much that we can talk about. So let's just dive right in. And I'm going to start with you, Valerie. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you found yourself in this space in the healthcare industry.
Oh, well, I was born into it, but my father was an innovator in the field of chlorine dioxide, was the first person to figure out how to take this gas, chlorine dioxide being a gas, and make it usable on a personal scale. Patented that method back in the 1970s, started a company called Alcide where he developed the technology. He did tremendous amounts of testing on efficacy, safety, pharmacology, toxicity, and saw the incredible antimicrobial efficacy and safety of this product, which lends itself to being used on the body, in the body, commercially. There's just so many uses for this. And we focus on the personal care topical uses of chlorine dioxide. That's just sort of one side of the story, but that's our focus. And he took that company called Alcide public and got EPA approval as a high-level disinfectant. And eventually that company got sold off to Ecolab.
Oh, wow.
And after his non-compete agreement was up, they were not developing all the applications for the technology that he knew it should be being used for, most specifically for use on the body. And so started up our new company, Frontier, to continue improving on that technology and coming up with more products and ultimately really making it easy to use so that we make products that are specific for specific applications like oral care, mouthwash, toothpaste, nasal care, which is the Snoot spray, and wound care, skin care products. And these products are pre-formulated at the correct concentration. They're shelf stable, so they're ready to go. And so it's been our goal to make chlorine dioxide easy to use. And so that's our story. And
it's so incredible because this is like a wonder compound, right? So we will definitely get into that a little bit more. And I love that you were born into this and that you've picked up, you're going with this. And I think that that's absolutely fantastic as a family business. So, okay. So Michelle, share your story. How did you find yourself here?
Well, it's kind of a long, crazy story. I had never heard of chlorine dioxide before in my life, like most people wouldn't, unless you're in the water purification or water treatment business. And at the time, I was living in California, and my husband at the time started doing some consulting work for a company that had just bought a small business that was using chlorine dioxide for room and car and boat and RV deodorizers.
Okay.
And that was in 2009. And, I remember the first day I heard about it, I was like, what? Are you serious? There's this compound that kills virus, bacteria, mold, spores, yeast, fungus, biofilm. What? Why? How come I've never heard about it? And through that work, we end up connecting with Howard Allinger and Valerie Allinger, and basically that's how we started this relationship. And we, and I have to say it was funny because like you said before, that it is a wonder compound. It's something that is so effective on so many things that you can't help but think of new inventions and new ways to use it every single day. And my husband was actually a consultant and was working with Howard, and this is in 2009, 2010, and And Howard had said, okay, if you're so smart, why don't you help me, become large again, and let's get our company rolling again. And of course, his advice was, you have way too many products. You need to focus, like stop inventing things. And he's like, okay, fine. And literally within weeks, we get all the different products from Frontier. We're trying them all out. We're testing them all. And he ends up, this is my husband at the time, starts feeling like he's getting a sinus infection. And he's like, wait, now what I know about chlorine dioxide, I bet you it breaks up mucus, kills virus, bacteria, mold, fungus. Why don't I take it and spray it up my nose? So he actually took the doggy ear fungus product and he sprayed it up his nose. And of course, all this disgusting junk came out, and he didn't, basically never ended up getting a sinus infection, which he knew it was
Wow.
imminent. And he calls Howard. He's like, Howard, oh my God, why don't you make a sinus spray? Why don't you make a nasal spray out of this? And of course, Howard's like, you just told me to
You
focus.
just told me to. You
Like,
just
of
told
course
me to
this would
knock
be
it
an awesome
off. What are
nasal
you
spray.
saying?
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. And then after a while, it was like, all right, you know what, let's do it. And Howard, I think Howard just couldn't resist. And he was like, okay, fine, here's the deal. And I think at that point he was in his late 70s, early 80s. And he was like, here's the deal. I'll make the formulation, I'll write the patent, I'll get NIH approval or do a toxicity test with my friends at the NIH, but you guys do everything else. And that's really how we started. And
Wow.
so the ex-husband is now gone. And sadly, Howard Allinger, Valerie's dad, passed away in 2020 at 92 years old. And so it's Valerie and I have really been kind of trying to pick things up and carry it forward. And it really is hard because we still find each other like, oh, we could make a this, we could make a that. You you just
Yeah,
can't
why
stop
don't you
inventing.
do this? Yeah.
Right,
Everyone's
right.
like, you should do this. Yeah, I
Yes.
know,
How
we
about
will. We
this?
will.
Well, I mean, and there are so many, like you're saying, because it's a wonder compound, and I'm going to ask that question here in a minute. Once a problem arises, then you're like, oh, well, we can use this to take care of that. Yeah,
Yep.
it just makes sense. Okay, so let us talk about this wonder compound. So Valerie, tell me a little bit more about the compound and why it's so special.
Lots of reasons it's special, but the first thing is that chlorine dioxide is actually a gas. So
Okay.
that separates it. It's a very simple molecule. It consists of one chlorine and two oxygen atoms. It's actually a free radical itself, so it's very reactive. It's a very powerful oxidizing agent. The only oxidizing agent that I think is more powerful is ozone. It is often considered the ideal biocide because it's effective on every type of microorganism, every kind of bacteria, virus, fungus, yeast, spores, typically kills everything within a minute of contact. But at the same time, it's safe. It's not the same as bleach. It is not bleach. Don't let anyone tell you it's the
Right.
same as bleach. It is a bleach, but it is not bleach as you know it. It is not sodium hypochlorite, which is what bleach is, NaOCl, as opposed to ClO2, which is chlorine dioxide. The chlorine dioxide, it does not have the toxicity profile that bleach does because on the very basic level, the chlorine in chlorine dioxide is not free to bind with organics the way bleach is.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's what causes the carcinogenic byproducts, the trihalomethanes and whatnot, when you use typical laundry bleach.
Right.
So not only do you have the incredible antimicrobial efficacy and the safety, it's also anti-inflammatory, it deodorizing, biofilm removal, but also it aids wound healing, and that's the biggest difference. And so when you put all of those properties together, the number of uses is just it's infinite, and because it can be used on open wounds on the body safely. It can be used in the mouth, it can be used in any cavity, and not that we do it, but people all over the world drink it for all its health benefits. So it's incredibly safe and effective on so many different elements. So
That's
that's what
amazing.
really
That's
makes it.
amazing. And it's safe for not only humans, but also pets, right?
Yes.
You have a pet
Mhm.
line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Well, I know that I've used some of that wound care on my dog's leg personally, and the speed at which healing is aided, let's say it that way, right? The
Right.
speed at
Yes.
which healing is aided is amazing to me. So that's incredible. Okay, so you take this pet product, Michelle, and he puts it in his ear, and then he's or whatever up his nose, the
Up his nose, right?
toilet up his nose. So tell us a little bit about Snoot. Tell us about how that, I mean, clearly that's how it came about, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I have to give really initial credit to Howard Allinger himself. He had actually already created a sinus spray and nasal rinse back during the first Desert Storm. And it was actually in use. And I don't know, Val can probably fill us in on all the details of what happened with that. But so, of course, Howard knew, of course, it would be great for that. It just never was really productionalized. And it was really interesting when we basically started to work together. Of course, Howard and Val, made the formulation, and we were out in California at the time, and got a team together to help us with the packaging and the logo and the marketing and all that stuff. And we first started really marketing this as an alternative to the neti pot. And what was really kind of interesting is, unlike the neti pot, you don't need a sink, you don't need to boil water, and it's incredibly convenient, unlike the neti pot. And we had a lot of converts early on. And we actually were going to make a neti pot version, and we had our neti pot testers, and they were like, honestly, this is a pain. I'd rather just mix the two items, the A and B, put it in a little cute little nasal sprayer, carry it with me. It's way more convenient than the neti pot. And so that's really kind of how it's evolved. And I'll have to say that, we just, even from an advertising standpoint, you do the typical things that you would do. My husband was actually in advertising and technology. And so we did a lot of the things that you would do for a new product. And honestly, some of them worked for a little bit and then they stopped working and over years. And really, I think what we now know that we didn't really know then is how much chlorine dioxide was actually censored. And now that we are connected really with the medical freedom community, with communities like Changing Life and Destiny, like these are the communities that people are open, they're aware, they're interested. And a lot of these folks, like a lot of the folks at your events, they already know about chlorine dioxide. They've heard about it for years. So really partnering with the people that are already in this space has been just a game changer for us. We do way less explaining about what chlorine dioxide is. And we
Right.
get to actually talk about people's challenges and how these different products can basically make chlorine dioxide easy and convenient.
Yeah. Oh, well, I have to say that, not only is my dog benefiting from your product line, but so is my husband. And then a friend of mine who was working for me at the Changing Life and Destiny conference in 2025, she was like, I have to get more of this Snoot. Nothing has worked. She said, nothing has worked for my son for his sinus problems. Nothing has worked until we started using this Snoot product. So
That's amazing.
it's just, it seems that the case studies and the stories of positive change are numerous and long. So why don't we talk a little bit about this? Why don't you tell me some of these stories? Valerie, we'll start with you, that just blow your mind as to what this wonder compound can do.
Well, where do I start? We have drawers and drawers of letters. Before the internet, we used to get letters, actually handwritten letters. I have several drawers of letters from regular people, doctors, veterinarians, just incredible. But
Amazing.
recently, for instance, and we have a picture of this, maybe we can show it. I got an email from a customer, said, oh, I hope you don't mind me sending you these pictures, but I went to visit my boyfriend in the hospital who just had a leg amputated, and she pulled the sock off his remaining foot and his toes were gangrenous and he was being completely neglected. And so she happened to have some of our Cyderm gel that we have, and she's like, I'm not even going to tell them. She just started putting it on, and they explained that his toe looked like hamburger. And after 3 days of putting the gel on, she said it was almost completely healed. She said she couldn't believe the transformation, and within
Wow.
6 days it was fully healed.
Wow.
So just as simple
Wow.
as putting that gel on. We have another case that we have some pictures of for people who aren't faint of heart. A friend's dog had gotten kicked by a horse, and it had degloved the whole bottom of the foot and the leg, and meaning that it pulled all the skin off, so it had all completely exposed under the skin. And they went through all the standard treatments, chlorhexidine, laser treatments. It became infected and odorous. They wanted to amputate his leg. She said, not a chance. This was an incredible dog. So she knew about our Cyderm products, our wound care products. She said, forget you. She started using them, and it started healing, and it completely healed. It took about 49 days, but it completely healed, and the dog was fine, running around, saved its leg. And
Unbelievable.
it's the kind of stuff you want to have in your medicine cabinet for, when that accident happens. My friend came in the other day. Her cat had scratched her nose, a big scratch down her nose, and she was holding it. She said, "Val, where's your stuff?" She's like, it won't stop bleeding. Every time she took her hand off it, it just started gushing blood. So I took some of our spray, I put it on a gauze pad, and I just held it up to it. And the chlorine dioxide, another thing that does is actually cauterizes. So it stopped the bleeding, it disinfects, and it cleaned it out all at the same time, and she was fine. And
Oh my goodness.
another thing chlorine dioxide does is that it helps prevent scarring. And so she had no scar. And yeah, so it's
Especially
just,
on a face. Oh my goodness.
yeah. So the stories are forever. I so many stories.
Do you have any internal stories, things that people have, internally taken it and it's positively changed?
Well,
We, I'll
maybe
let
I'll,
Michelle, we know so many people who,
yeah. I
Yeah.
was going to jump in and say, there's, of course, we've connected with this community that's really been involved in drinking it. And Val and I the first time we ever drank chlorine dioxide was, I think, 2021. And so we just thought it was crazy. And now we're converts, but we still don't do it. And what we found is a lot of people who they hear about it, they're interested, but a lot of people really find it challenging to drink it and to mix it. So we've had some things that frankly were helped. I'll say they're probably internal issues, but just by using our topical products, they've had resolution. And
Ah,
some of the things that we're seeing a lot and we're hearing a lot is brain fog. So a lot of folks that are having vaccine injury from the COVID vaccine or
mhm.
other vaccines, we're literally hearing from people that just from using the Snoot spray, a day later, their brain fog is gone. Now we haven't done any
Wow.
clinical trials on this, so we don't know
Sure.
for sure. But
Sure.
we're frankly shocked every day. We hear another story about how people are having long running issues resolved from the mouthwash, the toothpaste, the nasal spray, because they're touching that not only the mucous membrane, it's not only about the surface area that they're coming in contact to, but chlorine dioxide is a gas, as Val said. So
Right.
that gas, it's a teeny tiny amount, but it's clearly permeating and getting into the system. We just had another vaccine injury example. This gal actually had a flu shot from 2005. And this woman was in horrible condition. I sent her a whole bunch of products. I didn't even tell Val. I felt so bad for this woman. I'm just like, I'm going to send her everything because she was like on death's door. And she actually sent me pictures. I kind of forgot that I sent this stuff to her. And I guess about, I don't know, a couple weeks later, she sent this email, which I'll share with you to share with your audience. And she'd been suffering for 20 years, gone to, of course, a zillion doctors. She actually was even comatose. Had to learn to walk again. They basically were like, oh, you have this, cytokine storm, just these random syndromes. And they gave her steroids and painkillers and, the anti-anxiety. And they just said, sorry, this is the best we can do for you. And so never in a million years did she think anything like this would ever help her. And within 2 weeks, she had a bunch of skin rashes. She had a horrible rash all over her chest, her throat, her face, her arms, and that she tried everything on for 20 years. And 2 weeks of using the Snoot, the mouthwash, the toothpaste, our foaming facial cleanser, and even the gel. 2 weeks later, everything cleared up. She couldn't believe it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
Oh my goodness. Wow. 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 Well, that just reminds me that you guys were so nice and gave me a thing of the foaming face cleaner, and I've been using that. I think that I look pretty good. So it is definitely in our home and it's being used in our home. Curiously, has anyone, I mean, you were talking about how this is safe for dogs in their ears, but are humans using it in their ears as well?
Sure, they can, absolutely.
Wow. Wow. That's just fascinating to me. I mean, we all, I can only imagine what that's doing for some of the things that can happen in the ear. Okay, well, I love this. Let us skip to another question. And this is really, I know both of you are very passionate about this, but we're talking about the future of healthcare, right? And this is what Changing Life and Destiny is all about. We are about finding the people that appreciate and lock arms with our mission of changing the future of healthcare. So when it comes to prevention, when it comes to root cause, when it comes to things like that, Valerie, what is your envision of the future of healthcare?
Well, certainly that people take matters into their own hands more than they're used to now, and not just, I don't know, I don't know, not just trusting that their doctor has all the answers or the best answers, but to be armed themselves
Mhm.
with as many different types of remedies, but also, I mean, in the big picture, people need to be healthier. They need to
Yeah.
exercise. They need
Yeah.
to eat better. We need to get rid of all these toxins in our system. And our products are just one of so many. I mean, you go to these your exhibit, your shows, your events, and you see the incredible tools that are now out there for all of us to use, the red light therapies and the saunas and the quantum this and the
Yeah.
oysters and the so there's so many tools out there now that are becoming available to us. I think it's really exciting, and we're just one of these resources.
Right. I
I
like
mean,
to say it's the outside of the compendium, right? Our doctors are not, they're learning their own compendium, and they rely on that compendium, and they don't really, some of them don't fray from that. And so you're absolutely right that this is an opportunity for more practitioners to understand that there's so much more, in fact, more than 100 that we have at our conference, but definitely 100 different solutions for people. So I love that. Okay, how about you, Michelle?
Well, I think it's pretty amazing what's happening. And, we've been, Valerie's been at this a lot longer than I have, really fighting to get the attention and having people be aware of what chlorine dioxide is and all the capabilities it has and the benefits that it can provide. And, I have to say we're actually really excited to know that the actions that we're taking, small, medium, or large, are actually having some impact. And one of the things that we really did over the last couple of years is we've been really reaching out to kind of the leaders in the medical freedom movement and trying to get their attention. I actually went out to meet RFK Jr. because when I started following him a couple of years ago in children's health defense and hearing all these things that he was talking about and childhood issues from vaccines and autism. And, I kept hearing, I'm like, how does he not know about chlorine dioxide? So I decided to go meet him, and I did. And I managed to talk to him for about 30, 45 minutes. And he'd never heard about chlorine dioxide, which was shocking to me, especially given his involvement in water treatment, water purification, and really it's taking, the physical things out of water and stopping pollution. But we're really excited because we've really made an effort to connect with the movers and shakers that are in this movement to make sure that chlorine dioxide is at it's on the tip of their tongue when they're having these conversations. And we're really kind of thrilled. In a small way, we actually did have some influence in RFK Jr. actually mentioning chlorine dioxide during his Senate confirmation hearing. It's a long story, but also some things that were going on for those, especially in your audience, that they're not surprised to know that the censorship has been ridiculous. And there was actually 3 FDA warnings that were out about drinking chlorine dioxide over the years, one from 2010, 2019, 2020. And they were really based in nothing. They were just literally politically motivated hit pieces. And we know why now. Before we didn't really understand, but now we know why. So we have been asking repeatedly. In fact, I even have a text message from Bobby Kennedy. And I said, by the way, we've got a whole army of doctors, practitioners. They're ready, willing, and able to move forward to help people with autism, with cancer, with COVID, with bird flu, whatever it is coming down the pike. But we've got to get these FDA warnings taken off because they are rightfully afraid because people have been harassed, they've been stalked, they've been raided, they've been thrown in jail. And in fact, Mark Rennan still has two sons, I think, in jail from this. And he actually responded and he said, on it. And
Wow.
lo and behold, a couple weeks later, all 3 of those FDA warnings were removed. And I think there's actually Bobby Kennedy today is about to do another presentation in front of the UN and talking about let's go down the path of these alternative treatments, things that everyone in the world of changing life and destiny already knows about, right? The ivermectins, all these alternative things that are poo-pooed by mainstream medicine. And so we feel really good that chlorine dioxide is going to be a huge player in this. It's something that everyone should have in their home, in their pantry, in their medicine cabinet. It is literally one of those compounds that you should just always have a backup because you never know when you're going to need to purify water. I mean, that's at its most basic, right?
Wow.
As the power goes out or the water goes out, and now that's the most basic use for it. So everybody should have it. So we're pretty
Wow.
excited about. Oh, and I'll also say one of the prolific writers, Dr. Pierre Corey, he was really at the forefront of the medical freedom community. He got fired 3 times for prescribing ivermectin and saving people's lives during COVID. And he wrote a book called The War on Ivermectin. And when I got that book, it was kind of like a find and replace or an auto replace. I was like, every time he said ivermectin, my brain just auto filled with chlorine dioxide. And he has been writing about chlorine dioxide since December 25th of 2024. And he's now written so many Substack articles and he's become such an expert on it. He's about to publish a book called The War on Chlorine Dioxide. So that's
Wow.
going to be huge. Yeah.
Wow. My goodness. I hope you guys have beefed up your staff and it's not just the two of you.
I know. It's yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's needed. Oh my goodness. Well, I think that your hearts and your passion for what you are doing and the longevity you have in your hearts and your passion and your mission is really commendable. And it's something that I always love to talk to you ladies because it's infectious. Ironically, it's infectious. It's one of those things where I can tell, I can feel it even through the computer of how important you think this is and how much you are willing to do and what steps you are willing to take to make sure that those that will listen and sometimes those that won't at least hear about it and hear about the amazing wonder compound that is chlorine dioxide and what it can do for people. So I personally thank you so much for all of your work and all of your effort that you put in to really pushing this information to the forefront. There is a lot of misinformation out there. And so to push this to the forefront and educate people about what this is and putting it into a place in a system, in a use that's easy for people is just amazing. So I commend you for that and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to be part of your Changing Life and Destiny community to help us be a part of all the amazing things that are going on.
There's so much growth available, so much information to be shared. So thank you both for sharing your stories and your information today. And if any of our listeners have any questions, please go down into the show notes. We'll make sure that we are linking to their website so you can understand a little bit more about how you can get this into your home as well, because there are real reasons to have it. So thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Change Life Destiny podcast. If you loved what you heard, share it with a friend and follow us for more bold conversations and breakthrough ideas. Ready to take the next step? Visit changelifedestiny.com to join the movement. See you next time, and keep diving in, learning, and leading the change.